I'm going to draw you out of the cave. Kick and scream all you want, but you've been in there way too long. Chained up, staring at the shadows on the wall, thinking they're real, but I just can't let you accept that anymore. This podcast is about enlightening you to new perspectives while reimagining what society can be if given a fresh start. All I can do is show you new perspectives. It's your job to analyze and adopt or discard them. I'd urge you not to go back into the cave, where it's safe and the shadows are familiar, but instead step out with me because I'm here to show you what more there is to this magnificent world. Today, Andrea Lechner-Becker is going to be our savior. I love this discussion with her because I actually think about death a lot. Not in a morbid, all life sucks kind of way, but in a philosophical coming to terms with the inevitability of it. So getting a chance to talk about how we might construct the cultural views around death with Andrea excited the hell out of me. So who the hell is Andrea? Andrea is an author, and her new book is called 60 Days Left, which is about a woman who decides to deal with her terminal illness in an unconventional way by going out and experiencing life to the fullest instead of withering away taking chemo. She also wrote a fun little story called Pandemonious. You can find both of these glorious works of writing on Amazon.com. Before I jump into it with Andrea, I'd appreciate it if you could support me on Patreon. Even just $1 a month would be amazing. I'm planning to use the money to help me increase the quality of these shows and also to hire on a few people to make producing them easier, because goddamn, this is a lot of work. The money will also allow me to hopefully put a few more episodes out per week, so that's more talks for you guys and more content to engage with. If you support me on Patreon, you'll get some badass bonus content, like me doing street epistemology, which is where I go out and talk with people on the street or in coffee shops about their beliefs and why they have them. Once I get sponsors, you'll have access to sponsorless episodes, so you won't have to hear me rant about all this stuff, but that's only if you support me on Patreon. And I'll also come up with some other really cool stuff as I grow the show. So you can check that out at patreon.com/outofthecave. There'll also be a link in the show notes if you don't feel like having to remember that, or if you don't know how to spell Patreon. The last thing is that if you don't feel like donating money, I'd love it and really love you even more if you could either share this podcast with one friend you think might enjoy it and or leave a comment or review. I also love feedback. It's how I get better. It's how I improve the show. I really care about providing you, the listener, with the best experience possible. So whatever feedback would be greatly appreciated. You can send me an email. You can hit me up on Instagram at jptaxman24. I'm on Facebook, or leave it in the reviews. Let's now take our third step out of the cave with Andrea Lechner-Becker. Okie doke. So first I start out every podcast kind of with a frame, kind of frame the conversation. So I found this is a challenging concept to talk about because we're talking about a new society, a new culture, a new frame of thinking and living, and people, and even in the conversation we'll come to it, it's not that we're supposed to just talk about this new society, and I think it is good to talk about what doesn't work in the society. But people often too much revert back to talking about what's wrong with this society, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to at least break that and talk about what could be.
Sure.
So with that, I kind of frame it in the sense of, let's imagine that we've purchased an island off the coast of Fiji. Our goal is to create an optimized society fresh from the start, meaning that we're rethinking the culture, economic structures, educational systems, government systems, urban development, basically the whole thing from the ground up, right?
Yeah, and we're hot.
And we're hot.
Because it's Fiji.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's toasty.
Hot.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is we can make it not so hot and just, air conditioning.
Okay.
Or design our cities in a way that, funnels wind, so it naturally cools us.
Yeah. Right? Or under a hill or whatnot.
Under a hill.
Yeah.
Or maybe underground. Who says you got to build up?
That's right. Build down.
Down, yeah. It's cooler.
Hobbits. Yeah.
Exactly.
My parents actually have an underground house. Fun fact.
Well, that's fascinating.
I grew up underground. That's why I'm
You
so
grew up
pale.
no
Yeah.
wonder. No wonder. I love it. So our goal in this conversation is to create a culture where death isn't feared, and people may even celebrate death as a returning to the source or a congratulations of the final experience where they get to find out what the ultimate question is, right? But we're all kind of wondering what happens when you die, right? And, with that, I kind of want to start out with a little bit more talking about kind of where I've come from with death.
Okay.
And where, like, the point where I was, like, decided that death wasn't this, like, super scary thing anymore, which is funny because I'd kind of researched death. I'd researched studied philosophy a lot, and it talks, a lot about death and the afterlife and different philosophies on that. But it was actually watching Star Trek that kind of, like, flipped my thinking around it.
Okay.
Because I was watching this episode where, Worf, you watch Star Trek at all? Okay, so Worf is, like, the guy with the like, wrinkly forehead.
Okay.
If you've seen, kind of funky looking dude. And he's Klingon. And in Klingons, they're like a warrior society, right? So they're very much about, like, dying with honor and, like, going to battle. And, like, that's what the men do. And they're, like, kind of a manly society, kind of, kind of archaic. But when I was watching it, like, one of, the people that Worf kind of knew got killed. And he got killed in battle, though. So they were all, like, they're all kind of sad about it, but they're all, like, really excited because that's how you're supposed to die. That's, like, an honorable, good death. And they, like, were pumped for him because they're like, yeah, he died in battle. Like, and they're excited. And they had just such a different view on this guy's death than, like, getting really sad about it, right? And I was like, whoa. Oh, you don't have to view death as, like, a sad thing necessarily. Like, death, in a sense, could be celebrated if you want to view it that way.
Sure.
And so I was like, oh, maybe I need to rethink my ideas around death. So with that, what are some of the ways you think we can develop this type of view towards death in our culture, maybe in ways to frame it?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, we probably need to, like, do away with most mono religions, because that's really, like, the majority of the problem, right? It's like you have this idea that when you die, there is some large looming judgment that is going to come to pass, and that everything that you did in this life, I mean, I don't know, I don't love being judged in any sort of scenario, right? Most people don't like that at all. So it's like, when you think about death as it relates to especially Christianity, that's basically what you're dying to go do. And then, I have my viewpoints on Christianity in general. I grew up in a Lutheran grade school and middle school. I was raised, obviously, all around the religion. So I never really understood that idea that, like, it's supposed to be this great thing that you go to heaven and then sing to Jesus all day. Like, it always seemed super weird to me. Like, I don't like singing in church. Have you sang in church? It fucking sucks. Like,
I grew up Jewish.
Okay.
So, like, we had a different frame around that. But when I would look at, like, Christian faith, I'm like, what's the point? Because Jews don't really believe in heaven or hell. They're just kind of like, we believe in heaven and hell on earth. But, like, it is a weird thing. Like, what is the point of believing in God for Jews? It's an interesting thing because we don't have that. It's just like, live, you can make your life heaven or hell here, and then there's, like, a thing that happens, and then you die. They really don't talk about much about it. I think,
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Well, we talk about it a lot, and in Revelations, there's this whole fear of hell, because hell is this place where, like, they say basically you are in a constant state of disintegration and, like, rot, and it sounds really miserable, right? So you sort of are living in this perpetual state of fear that if you aren't moral, and then if you don't believe in Jesus and say you're sorry for being immoral, then you're going to this really bad place.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you put this dichotomy into people's minds of when you die, it's either good if you followed all the rules, or it's bad then there's an inherent fear that comes from death because, well, what if I fucked it up?
Yeah, what if I didn't do that?
Then I'm going
most
to be
people feel that way, right?
perpetually burning for the rest of eternity, which I can't even conceptualize.
Not the slightest.
And so I think that's first, right? Like, no Christianity on this island, so I think it's totally just going to fuck everything up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
I think, especially really from fear. Like, fear is the root of kind of all problems.
Yeah.
It's just operating out of a space of fear.
Yeah.
Instead of operating out of a place of love.
Yeah.
And then, or I don't even, maybe not even love, but just like acceptance and compassion. Kindness
like,
is great as well.
Yeah. Like, I don't really care about love so much either, but like, just be nice to each other.
Yeah.
You know, if you got an option,
you know, help each other out.
Yeah. To you know, like, help somebody lift something or not, just go help them lift it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that, that's sort of key for me and where I come from on the topic. And then, yeah, I mean, I think that any time that you're around nature, sort of the beauty of death becomes really obvious. Mm-hmm. So I think that our little culture should be very nature focused, because I think when you think about, you know, even a plant that it's going to bloom during a certain period of time and then it's going to die. And even if you frankly like cut those blooms off, then next year there will be 2 of them and it will be even more beautiful. So I think nature has a lot of really fantastic and special lessons because we're just some dirt and we just breathe like plants do too. Like, there's really nothing about us besides our intelligent minds that makes us any different than the rest of the vegetation on Earth. And so I think that's another super important element to make sure that we're educating around. And so I used to be in charge of people, right? I was people's bosses. And what you learn when you do that, or I assume when you have children, I have none, but I have heard this from my friends that do, is that it's really all about what you say and what you don't. So big changes in the way that a person thinks can happen from just educating around and just being excited about a plant living and blooming, and then when it doesn't, saying like, oh, it's no big deal, it'll come back next year. Like, you know, and I think that I'm a big believer in energy not being created or destroyed, and so that everything is just cyclical. So I don't obviously pretend to know what happens when you die, but like, I don't know, I think that whatever this energy is that's inside of me that makes me who I am, I hope it does something cool next, you know? Well, that was the other big thing too about like when I was growing up, it never made sense. My favorite person on the whole planet is my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. And, you know, like when she died, I was told, you know, like you'll see her again in heaven. And I was like, I don't really want to, like, not because I obviously don't want to see her ever again. Like, if she was still alive, but she just like was doing some CIA mission instead of dying, like I would obviously be like, oh my god, grandma's still alive, you know? But generally, like, I would rather believe that she came back as something that gives that life force that was inside of her, that brings joy to the rest of humanity, like right now. So I think that's probably what I would shove down people's throats. That everything's fine and it's all just cyclical. Anyways, don't worry about it.
That's really what it is, right? I mean,
my opinion.
No, and I think there's something to be said about that, right? Like, energy does kind of go into other things. Like,
I mean, it's science.
It is science. And no, but the funny thing too, I was thinking about too while you're talking about like your grandma dying. Like, I don't necessarily want to see her again, right? Or maybe you want to see her, but whatever, you know, that may be the case. But there are people who are like, maybe someone dies and they're like, I don't want to see that person again. And then they're going to have to go to heaven and then they're going to see him again for eternity. It's like, damn it.
Being a hypocrite and being a dick the whole time.
But no, you know, obviously it's like that idea of seeing people that you do miss and want to see again is very enticing and very like a cool thing. But the other part too, I think, is this thing I've been playing around